Hello everyone, my name is Valensya Ikhsan and my friend Suci Nur Aini. In this video, we will explain about the differences between American, British, and Indonesian accent. So there are two tables of content. The first is American and British accent, and the second is Indonesian accent. First, American and British accent. Differences in use of tenses. In British English, the present perfect is used to express an action that has occurred in the recent past that has an effect on the present moment. For example, I've misplaced my pen. Can you help me find it? In American English, the use of the past tense is also permissible. I misplaced my pen. Can you help me find it? In British English, however, using the past tense in this example would be considered incorrect. Other differences if involving the use of the present perfect in British English and simple past in American English include the words already, just, and yet. British English, for example, I've just had food. Have you finished your homework yet? In American English, I just had food or I've just had food. I've already seen that film or I already saw that film. Differences in vocabulary. While some word might mean something in British English, the same word might be something else in American English and vice versa. For example, athlete in British English is one who participates in track and field events, whereas athlete in American English is one who participates in sport in general. Another example is rubber in British English is a tool to erase pencil marking, but rubber in American English is a condom. There are also some words like AC, airplane, bro, cell phone, etc., which are common in American English and not used very often in British English. Some words widely used in British English and seldom in American English are advert, barrister, cat's eye. Differences in spelling. So there are many words that are spelled differently in both forms of English. You can see the example on the screen. They're American and British. Okay, next. Differences in use preposition. There are also a few differences between British and American English in the use of preposition. For example, while the British would play in a team, American would play on a team. Another example is while the British would go out at the weekend, American would go out on the weekend. Differences in pronunciation. Some words that are pronounced differently in American versus British English are controversy, leisure, schedule, etc. There are also some words like X or X in British and defense using S and defense using C in British, which have the same pronunciation but different spelling in both languages. Differences in verb usage. American and British English may also use a base verb in different manners. For example, for the verb to dream, American would use the past tense dreamed, while the British would use dreamed in past tense. Another example of differing past tense spelling for verbs in American and British English is forecast. Americans use forecast, while the British would say forecast in simple past tense. And the last is differences in time telling. Both languages have a slightly different structure of telling the time. While the British would say quarter past 10, it is not uncommon in America to say quarter after or even a quarter after 10. 30 minutes after the hour is commonly called half past in both languages. American always write digital times with a colon, whereas British often use a point.
The second one is Indonesian accent. Indonesian accent is the accent that Indonesians use when speaking English. As English is now widely spoken globally, other parts of the world outside the US, UK, Australia, or Canada try to learn and speak English. English is an Indonesian second language, and most of them usually try to speak like native speakers, either American English or British English, even with their broken English. Indonesian accent is likely sound different from native speakers, like American or British accent. But there are many factors that can influence how people with English as their non-mother language, shaping their own English accent. For example, it can depend on the geographical area and the majority of social culture. The main differences between English and Indonesian. Many languages spoken around the world share similarities in syntax, grammar, or even vocabulary because they share the same origin, such as Dutch and German, Indonesian and Malaysian, or French and Spanish. English and Indonesian, however, are worlds apart, having West Germanic and Austronesian roots, respectively. Given the vastly different rules separating the two, it can be quite challenging for a native speaker of Indonesian to learn the ins and outs of the more complex English language. Syntax. Syntax is the arrangement of words in a sentence, which is mostly the same between English and Indonesian in simple phrases, but begins to differ in questions and adjective phrases. English questions, for example, start with a question word who, what, when, why, where, and how, followed by a verb and then subject, or in yes or no questions, they begin with a verb followed by subject. For example, what are you eating? Or are you eating? In Indonesian, questions start with the subject. For example, kamu makan apa? Atau kamu mau makan? Meanwhile, adjective phrases in the two languages are in opposite order. In English, the adjective comes before the noun, but in Indonesian, the noun is mentioned first. For example, red car or mobil merah. And then plural form. Once more, Bahasa Indonesia keeps it simple in the way it describes an object of which there is more than one. Merely repeat the word, as in buku-buku or anak-anak, or add a plural determiner such as banyak lukisan, para penonton, and sejumlah toko. English plural forms are a bit more complicated. Firstly, they are divided into two categories, regular and irregular nouns. The former simply counts an S or ES, like books, paintings, potatoes, and clothes. That's the easy part. Various things can happen to irregular plural nouns, from changes that are slight, knife or knives, wolf and wolves, woman and women, and more complicated like child, children, person and people, mouse and mice, food and feet. To change that are rather odd like cactus or cacti, phenomenon and phenomena. And then there are those that say the same, such as sheep, deer, species, and offsprings. And then verb tense. Bahasa Indonesia is relatively easy to learn because of its simple grammar rules, particularly with regard to verb tenses or the lack of it. Unlike Indonesian, which uses the same verb for past, present, and future situations, English has 16 different tenses. It may take time to master all of them, but it is not impossible. And then passive voice. Both English and Indonesian use the active and passive voice. But while the passive voice is frequently used in Indonesian, English sentences are stronger in the active form, especially when the focus is on the object. For example, this sentence: "The last slice of cake was eaten by my brother," seems more awkward and wordy than when it's active. My brother ate the last slice of cake. And then, how does Indonesian accent sounds like? For the first, Indonesian has a stronger R. Indonesian usually has a very strong R's. They clearly pronounce the R with only a little bit of W sound. For example, Indonesia usually say very with a very clean R as it very, not very with a slight of W. The second, no dead letters. Indonesian usually tend to sound silent or dead letters in the word. They pronounce it all. For example, Indonesians speak the B and D or any other silent letter boldly in Wednesday, not Wednesday, bomb, not bomb or bomb. You may also notice Indonesian, especially Javanese ethnic, speak this word of B and D way more explosive. Not only in English, but even also when they speak Indonesian or their local language. And then, similar letters without difference. There is no difference between these two of V and F. Both letters sound almost exactly the same because there is no vibration in the vocal cord, which makes very is just the same as very. Not to mention that some Sundanese, a local native from West Java, usually say V and F as a clean P. For example, turns golf into golf. And the last one is full A. Again, with pronunciation, Indonesians tend to stress the A in the word boldly just like the full A. For example, basic, not basic. My, not me. Most of the examples are talking about pronunciation. Some also mention that the habit of stressing the word or incorrect stress word pattern is one of the noticeable Indonesian English accent. Okay guys, that is our presentation about the differences between American, British, and Indonesian accents. Thank you for your attention and thank you for watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.